Hey there, it's Amy Lewis from the KFBK Morning News with Brandon Haefele from Catalyst Mortgage, the CEO and founder of Catalyst Mortgage. And this is a topic that I think if you have a high school student who's about ready to graduate, or perhaps you have somebody who's in their first year of college and you're still trying to figure out how to pay for it, should you ever, Brandon Haefele, use your home equity to pay for college? Is there ever a time that you should?
You know, it's a real tough discussion, and I think that it comes down to, both parents or, with yourself. If you're a single parent, just to really decide long term, what you had in store. But I think it goes into 10 years prior, 15 years prior to that, when you're first starting out, what are what is your vision for your family? Where do you see yourself and doing for your children? And I think that, we have this idea that, of course, we want to provide our children everything. But at the same time, you want to provide them everything, but not bankrupt yourself, and not put yourself in that bad position.
So let me stop you there, because you said we should be really talking about this 15 years prior. So let's put ourselves there. Our, my child is 5 years old, right? They're going to be graduating in 13 years from high school, going into college at that point.
That's me.
Okay, so, right, exactly. So this is where you start to actually put money away.
It really is. It's one of those things that now is the time to start that 529, start the the account with an investment professional, even if it's $20, $50, $100, $200, whatever you can a month, to put away for college if that's your if that's your intention.
Right.
At the same time, is you go through and you're looking at colleges now to the 18-year, 17, 16, 17, 18-year-old time frame. It's understanding the grant programs that are available, the different types of loan programs. I think that home equity can be used if it's done a certain way. Meaning, if you have an investment property that you have been, you've had for the last 10 years, and you're looking to maybe do a refinance of that, pull out equity, that can make sense. And the reason I say that is, I'm not a proponent of your primary residence, because at the end of the day, that is
using that equity.
Using your equity of your primary residence, because that's your equity. That is your retirement. And at the end of the day, as a parent, exactly. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
Sorry, kids, because the simple fact is you have to make sure that you're focused on number one, in the sense of that your financial security is there.
Right.
Because if you're not financially secure, and if you are not mentally there as a parent, and you're strapped financially because of all these things, what's that going to do to your children when they're 22, 23, 24, just because you did this for a mortgage? I'm a believer that you only will utilize the equity in your home if, let's say, your mortgage is paid down so far that by pulling out that $100,000 or $150,000 or whatever the amount is, that it's not going to change your payment adversely to where your financially position would be strapped. Meaning, if you're currently paying $2,000 a month and you have been for 15 years, by going ahead and doing that refinance, extending the term 5 years or something, that by doing that, it's not going to put you in a bad position.
Okay, so I'm going to pick that up, because a lot of people think that it's so very important for their kid to go to a high-end university. And in my experience with our own children, one of our daughters went to a high-end university. Our other two daughters went to not a high-end university. We'll just put it that way. So first of all, I mean, there are incredible differences in affording those colleges. So how do you kind of change your thinking of, I have to go there and I have to find a way to afford it, to my kid just needs to have a good education?
Well, I think it comes down to individual discussion as a family, including the child. Where can we as parents help you go? Or where can we afford? But at the same time, as you as a student taking out that debt, or whatever student loan debt you're going to take out, whether it be going through the federal grants, programs and so on, understanding if we go to this college, mom and dad can afford this, or mom can afford this, or dad can afford X amount. The difference, if you want to go to this high-end university, you're going to have to cover the difference in loans. What's that going to look like on a monthly basis, yearly basis, and over the next 20 years? And what will that potentially impede you from doing? Are you going to be able to buy a house within the first 5, 10 years if you have this big payment? Are you going to be able to buy the car that you want after you graduate? And it's a discussion that we have to have as parents early on, as my wife and I are having, right now with our daughter Caitlin.
Right.
But then also is, they get into high school and past that, where do you want to be and what are the things that you want? Because at the end of the day, going to a high-end university versus going to a great, Sac State,
school,
great school, here even locally.
Sac State,
exactly.
Stingers up.
But the idea that one is going to be so financially hard on the student or the family that this student is not going to be able to buy a house in 5 years or 10 years or 15, or they go to an alternate school and now they can buy a home, build their investment portfolio and grow. It really has to come down to a side-by-side discussion, really look at all options. Of course, we all want the best for our children, but at the same time, we need to be practical as parents, and we need to make sure that we're not bankrupting ourselves, that we're not setting our kids up for a potential bankrupt situation, and that we're going to help their financial position grow as they graduate and start their life.
From my own perspective, I just want to say that because you want to make sure that you're financially capable of doing this, you don't want your kid to go to college and be so concerned about whether mom or dad can afford this, and so they're sweating that, whether or not they're going to be able to graduate from that college or have to move to a different college. There's so much, Brandon, that you have to think about in advance.
Well, and one thing that's important, as parents, people
you don't want to put that pressure on your kids, is what I'm trying to say.
For sure. And at the same time, though, parents also need to take a step back and understand that there are major income limitations when it comes to write-off of student loan debt.
Right.
That's a huge thing that people don't realize. You cannot write, a certain amount of interest off if your income level is a certain point. And then on top of that, with the equity lines, people used to do the equity line thing. Oh, my kid will make the payment after they graduate. Those aren't tax deductible anymore. So it's again, really taking an approach, and I urge anyone that's in the process or within 2 years of the college process, start talking to a financial advisor, look at how it's going to impact your position if you co-signed on a student loan or if you did this, and the co-signing is another big thing. We all want to help, but understand that when you co-sign for a student loan, at the same time you're binding yourself to those payments, and that can adversely affect your debt to income ratio when you're purchasing a home, purchasing a car, credit cards, credit scores. Anything you name it, it can affect your financial position. So you have to make sure that you're doing the research up front to know what's going to happen.
I will tell you this quick story. We have friends who had twins, boy and a girl, going off to a high-end university. The kids wanted to go. The parents were like, all right, we'll do everything we can to get you there. They co-signed on the loan. Kids, I don't know what it's called, forfeited on the loans. The parents had to pay the loans. To pay those 2 loans, they had to sell their home. Beautiful luxury home. Sell it. They're now living in a very small cottage because that's all they can afford. That's the nightmare, my friend.
Well, exactly, and it's knowing up front before that happens, doing the research, educating yourself, and making sure you realize it's not a student loan. An education to that level is not worth bankrupting yourself. And really, at the end of the day, we all turned out great.
Yes,
everyone's
we
doing
did.
well. So let's just look at it and do it the right way.
Yeah, send your kid to a good college. Make sure that they're secure and they're enjoying themselves and studying. They'll do very well, just like this guy over here. So if you have any questions about putting your kid into college or how to pay for it, or does a high-end university look at your home's equity versus somebody else's, that's another really good question to talk with Brandon about. Or just go to the Catalyst Mortgage Facebook page. There's so much information. There's so much helpful information about getting started and staying on the right track with Catalyst Mortgage too.